We have a doozy of a show today. Obviously, there's going to be a whole lot of talking about the Hamas-Israel conflict that is ongoing right now, especially with some of the major developments of the day. Um, we're also going to be talking a little bit about the responses we've been seeing to the outbreak of this war, and it's gonna get a bit rough. Not gonna lie. So brace yourselves. Um, so earlier today, well, not earlier today. We're gonna start that over. So one of the things that has been a big question since the beginning of the Hamas-Israel conflict is to what degree Hezbollah is involved, and if Hezbollah is involved, is it going to take action? Um, for those of you who don't know, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that is largely dedicated to attacking and destroying Israel. Um, that's obviously simplifying everything a lot. However, I'm trying to just convey this so we can get to the meat of this. Apparently, a lot of analysts that have access to far more information than I do are saying that there is indeed coordination between Hamas and Hezbollah, which is bad news, as this has the potential to drag out this conflict. And frankly, the longer this conflict goes on, the more damage is going to be inflicted on Gaza. Today, there was indiscriminate bombing of different locations within the Gaza Strip, and gotta be 100% real with you guys. They aren't targeting military targets. They're just not. And you can look at the things that they say themselves. And by they I mean Israel here. You can look at what their military officials have to say, and by and large, a lot of them are just saying, they're just saying genocide. Like just very clearly looking into the camera and saying, "Yes, we will genocide them." Um, One of the quotes, this is from a Israeli security official on Israel's Channel 13 earlier today. Quote, "Gaza will eventually turn into a city of tents. There will be no buildings." I mean, there's really no other way to frame it other than this is a push towards the most extreme possible end. And I mean, this is from Haggai Matar, who is we talked about him during the outbreak of this, but a journalist and executive director at 972 Mag, basically been covering Israel-Palestinian relations for like the last decade. And he quotes an Israeli army spokesman saying, "In attacking Gaza, our focus is on creating damage, not precision." So, yeah, and this comes from a statement on Haaretz. Um, here's the full direct quote from Haaretz. Yeah. Yeah. He also said that the army drops hundreds of tons of bombs in attacks in the Gaza Strip, and explained that the emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy. We are taking a toll on every Hamas position and structure, dozens of every pilot in every Air Force strike. Yeah, and again, they will claim to cover their asses that they're hitting weapon warehouses, and those weapon warehouses just happen to be in mosques that are, used as shelter by civilians. Um, yeah, it's it's going to get worse. Now, there is a story floating around today about Hamas allegedly beheading 40 infants. There's a lot of disinformation out there right now, and I do not know if that story is true or not. Unfortunately, I was hoping I could come in here and say it's been completely debunked, but there are apparently journalists who claim to have seen the bodies of these infants, and there are also claims from like the Israeli military that they don't know about this. There's a lot of information on the ground today, but it is really bad. Now, I don't know if that one is true. Okay, I don't know if the 40 babies beheaded, if that is true or not. Take that with all of the grains of salt, and continue. Like, if it is true, there's going to be more and more of that story being shared, along with kind of bona fides to prove something like that is real. And what we do know, well, they said the same just before the invasion of Iraq. Well, yeah, but there's a bit of a difference here between the American invasion of Iraq and Israel's attack on Palestinians. And that is, this was preceded by an attack on a lot of different civilian locations. And the damage is still being calculated. Obviously, fighting is still ongoing. But one thing we do know for certain is that the Hamas soldiers that raided into Israel via paragliders landed near a concert that was happening and massacred people who were attending the concert. And when I say massacred, I mean 260 civilians were shot in the back as they ran from the venue. Now, all I'm saying here is that this is a war crime. Very blatant war crime. Verifiable war crime. And all I ask from leftists elsewhere around the globe is that you do not support war crimes. It's not hard to do. Like, you obviously don't support war crimes when Israel does it, but also recognize that Hamas does lots of war crimes. This is not a difficult issue. Palestinians are not Hamas. The same way Jewish people aren't Israel. These are two organizations made up of people, but they do not speak on behalf of all people. Hamas is evil, guys. And on the left, we should acknowledge that. It is an evil organization. It is an evil organization born out of circumstances that make its existence understandable. But that doesn't make slaughtering civilians justifiable. We can understand something without justifying it. And honestly, like, today has just kind of broken my brain. We have people going online. Famously, today, it's been a handful of hours, but the Black Lives Matter Chicago group shared this out, and this is one of the Hamas fighters paragliding. And where did I just tell you the Hamas fighters paraglided to. They paraglided into a concert where they killed 260 unarmed civilians. Like, as leftists, you don't need to defend that. And you certainly don't need to celebrate it. Like, can we pretend for can we just like accept for a moment? Can we stop pretending? And just realize that cheering on absolutely unjustifiable mass murder is not cheering on Palestinian liberation. I'm sorry, gunning down Israeli civilians is not going to lead to Palestinian liberation. At all. And in fact, there's a very decent chance that this is going to lead to Palestinian genocide. So I do not understand the mental calculus that goes on in people on the left's brains when it comes to this issue. The Israeli government funded Hamas for decades, specifically to get them to do attacks like this, to justify the escalating, conservative bent of Israel. And it has worked wonders. The government of Israel now is basically run by a fascist. I mean, like... And frankly, he's on the precipice of being able to solidify complete and utter control of his country due to this attack. So, I don't know. The cheers for the cheers of this being like, oh, the first steps of Palestinian liberation are born out of complete ignorance and also complete and utter brain rot. Yeah, and like on the one, and your Uncle Meatball, first of all, thank you for the raid. And second of all, yeah, Hamas is bad, Israeli government bad. And just because we can understand the circumstances that gave birth to the rise of power of Hamas in the oppressed area of the Gaza Strip, doesn't mean we need to support it when it does terrorism. Yeah, and honestly, what seems like it's going to happen now, right? Because this is obviously a really new conflict. A bunch of the question marks that happened earlier around this were regarding Hezbollah and Iran. Because there has been a non-zero chance that Hezbollah, like a pretty significant non-zero chance, that Hezbollah coordinated with Hamas and is gearing up to enter the conflict. Thus creating kind of a two-front war for Israel. Second of all, there's a decent chance that Iran is going to try and get involved in some sort of sideways manner, possibly through using Hezbollah or Hamas as proxies. And, yeah, things are not going well, specifically because, well, this is from earlier today. Hezbollah, Hamas claim attacks on Israel from Lebanon. The Palestinian Hamas group has claimed a rocket attack, and the Lebanese group Hezbollah exchanged fire with Israel in a third day of violence at the border that has opened up a new front for Israel as it battles Hamas militants in Gaza. Lebanon's Hezbollah fired a guided missile at an Israeli tank on Tuesday, the group said in a statement, and Israel said it responded by striking an observation post belonging to the Iran-backed group. So this is... Yeah, the U.S. is currently taking geopolitical steps to try and prevent Iran from directly engaging in this conflict, but we'll have to see. Because, again, a lot of the nations in the Middle East, you know, including, like, Egypt, Saudi Arabia are at the very least nominally on the side of Hamas. And so it's been a bit of a question as to what exactly they are going to do as things progress in this conflict. Yeah, Kevin Dredd, I think that's a decent analogy. Thinking that Hamas represents most Palestinians is like thinking the Bloods and the Crips represent most Black Americans. Yeah. Yeah, and things are going poorly. So basically, right now, we have, over 2,000. These death totals, 900 Israelis, 700 Palestinians killed. These are old. The current death toll is over 2,000, and the wounded is in the, possibly over like 7,000. If Hezbollah gets involved in this conflict, one thing you guys need to know about Hezbollah is that they are significantly larger than Hamas, to the tune of tens of thousands of troops. This is going to be very bad if the conflict continues to escalate, to say the very least. Also, so we know that Hezbollah is massing troops. We know that Israel is massing troops. Israel reportedly has over 100,000 troops stationed on the border with Gaza. And it looks like increasingly likely that they're going to do a land invasion of the Gaza Strip, which they haven't done for many years now. And it's gonna get really horrific, really horrific. Already, we're seeing pictures coming out of Gaza showing just like in the middle of a city, just like an entire city block leveled. Now, Michael Knights, a fellow at the Washington Institute, an expert on Iran-backed militias, had this to say to The Independent. Israel says the Hamas attack involved about 1,500 commandos entering Israel. Israel has assessed that Hezbollah has a 45,000-strong regular army. Hamas fired about 3,300 missiles and drones so far. Hezbollah has around 150,000 munitions ready to fire. So again, the scale of this conflict has the potential to spark into a much wider one. And if that happens, by the way, if this happens, and already we're on the verge of seeing this turn into a fascist power grab by Benjamin Netanyahu. If Hezbollah does enter this, that to me, that basically seals the deal. Like, Benjamin Netanyahu is coming out of this, like, basically being considered by, the far right in his country, which is the mainstream, as a goddamn war hero. And he basically has free range to do whatever he wants. Like, that is how this goes. Right? And all of these news stories about, Hamas fighters massacring children or the elderly or, concert goers. This is all like, Israel has a very sophisticated propaganda network. They don't need to embellish that much here. Yeah, they don't need to embellish much on actual war crimes having been committed. He'd come out of it like Bush did after 9/11. Yeah, but imagine if instead of Bush on 9/11, you had like 45,000 guys invade America to start doing like attacks and massacres on civilians. Like, it's going to be Bush after 9/11, like Bush's approval rating after 9/11 times like 10. Yeah, I can't lie. Just glad this stream is here. The information coming out is fucking tragic. It's horrible. It is horrible. Now, one thing that has also been relatively overlooked by people wondering whether or not Hezbollah is going to get involved in this conflict is the fact that Hezbollah has been very active within Syria over the last several years. Meaning that Hezbollah's fighters are not just, like, fresh recruits. They're not people who just emerged out of military training. A lot of Hezbollah's manpower is, for lack of a better word, seasoned by combat. They are used to it already and are willing to use it against Israel. Yeah, it's gonna get a lot worse, which seems impossible given the images we're seeing of, like, leveled cities. But that's what we're gonna see. You know, and I don't want to make it seem like, oh, well, poor Israel is beset on all sides. I'm just talking about the geopolitics of the situation, because the reality is Israel is going to return all of this civilian death 10, 20, 40-fold on the residents of Gaza, on the Palestinians, most of whom are children. Already, in today's death toll so far, 260 children were killed during Israeli bombings. Yeah. 230 women, presumably mothers, grandmothers, also dead. So there are certainly massacres here on both sides. The devastating part about it is that Israel is in a position to continue doing those massacres in perpetuity, essentially. I don't know where this goes, but to me it seems abundantly clear that this is going towards genocide for the Palestinian people. And there's not a solution here, really, in the short term anyway. Yeah. We're already seeing the first world clamping down on this. The UK is threatening to arrest people for flying the Palestinian flag or chanting from the river to the sea. Biden is already being a ridiculous coward about this. He could pressure Israel to the table, but he won't, because AIPAC and votes and money and power. Yeah. No, I mean, like, the UK was in a full-blown political meltdown because a student at Harvard posted, like, a pro-Palestinian like, statement online. Like, that was it. Just pro-Palestinian statement online. Country went into meltdown. People when it comes to this cannot have nuance. Nuance is anathema to people. For a lot of folks, you are either on the side of Israel or you are on the side of Hamas. And frankly, I'm on the side of neither. I'm on the side of Palestinians. I'm on the side of the Israeli people. You know, I'm on the side of the people who have nothing to do with these geopolitical struggles for power, who just want to live and let live. And I firmly am of the belief that that is most people. And, like, man, just and I do have to say, like, for sure, we need to end apartheid. We need to get the ceasefire. And I just don't believe in ethnic cleansing as a concept. I don't believe in it regardless of who's doing it. I don't believe in it as a justification to massacre groups of individuals. I just... And it seems like there is, sadly, a lot of people across the political spectrum who just don't agree with what I just said regarding that. So, I think that there are a lot of people who are showing you exactly who they are right now, and you should pay attention because they're going to be that person going forward, and they have been that person in the past. So pay attention to what people are saying right now because they are screaming to the rooftops about who they are. And I think that there are a lot of people on the left who are not grounded in principles, who are just playing team sports at the end of the day when it comes to this, and not actually thinking about the ramifications, not thinking about how things might benefit the Palestinian people and bring this conflict to a close. All they are seeing is two teams playing in the playoffs together and tossing around the lives of Palestinian and Israeli civilians like they're balls in a court. And it sickens me. Can't say it's remotely shocking that the world powers that benefited the most from colonialism and imperialism have collectively lost their shit. Well, yeah, because they basically propped up Israel, after its founding as like the military base of the Middle East, right? It makes sense from a geopolitical perspective, but it is absolutely unconscionable from a humanitarian one. Hey, Huffle Badger. Now, of course, we need to see the absolute worst takes on this, because obviously people have takes. First, we have Donald Trump, and you guys will be shocked to know that Donald Trump believes that he could have stopped Hamas. If he was president, Hamas would have been stopped in its tracks, just wouldn't have even tried it.
Almost nothing there. And that was meant for war. Now, who could imagine a war, right? With people pouring into our country and we have no idea from where they come. The same people in many cases, the same people that just attacked Israel. You know that, right? Can you imagine what this guy has done to us, what he's done to us? That would have never happened. The attack on Israel would never, ever have happened. The attack on Ukraine would never have happened. Inflation would never have happened. None of it would have happened. We would have been a different country because right now we're a country in decline, serious decline. To bring down the energy cost for New Hampshire families, I will immediately rescind every Green New Deal catastrophe of the Biden administration. And we will drill, baby, drill. We'll get them way down. We'll get them way down. You know, if they would build a pipeline, and we started it, and we were just about set to have it, then you had that result in the election, which was so terrible. But going through New York State, a very poor section of New York State, the people up there want it very much, but you would have a pipeline, your numbers would come down in half, more than half. It's amazing. You know, they used to have, they probably still have, knowing this guy, he gets oil from Venezuela, why not from Russia, right? But you used to have ships from Russia coming in to give you your oil and gas. You know that, right? The ships would come in from Russia. And we have so much. We have more than...
I just can't, dude. Yeah, so to respond to the Ukrainian, there is that possibility that that Hezbollah getting involved and the fallout of this Hamas attack will turn people against Benjamin Netanyahu. However, it seems increasingly likely, as of 3 hours ago, that his party is going to be able to form a unity government with opposition politicians, and the opposition are, frankly, they're center right. They are already conservative. So the opposition to Netanyahu is just conservatives, just like, they're more on board with killing Palestinians in a much longer time window. And like, I think that this will in turn empower Netanyahu to possibly make a more effective stab at killing the judiciary, which is what he was in the process of doing prior to this Hamas attack. So I think, honestly, I think it's far more likely to go in the opposite direction, but I hope you're correct. I hope you are correct and Netanyahu fails at this power grab, but so far, I haven't seen anything indicating that it's going to slow him down. Yeah, there's literally a Zionist party in the Knesset whose goal is genocide. Yeah. True. Okay, and we do have to cover this because, of course, there is one more big brain take that we haven't gotten yet, and that is Piers Morgan. What does Piers Morgan think about Israel Hamas?
From Ramallah in the West Bank by the Palestinian Initiative.
Yeah, because we all want to see a white British man debate a Palestinian on the conflict.
Leader Mustafa Barghouti. Mr. Barghouti, thank you for joining me. It's very hard when you look at the scale of what has happened here, not to believe that this is a reprehensible terrorist attack by a bunch of medieval barbarians. When I say that, what is your response?
First of all, let me say that I'm really sorry about what happened to Deborah's family. I'm glad they are safe. If I can contribute to relieving their suffering, I am ready to do so. That's one side of the issue. But what I would like you to know, and I want the audience to know, is that what they described is exactly what happened to many Palestinian families only 3 months ago, when Israeli illegal settlers attacked their houses and burned them. These were American Palestinians from the village of Tormusaiya and Sinjil and Huwara, and they almost faced the same story. Their houses burned, their cars burned by fanatic Israeli illegal settlers.
And by the way, what he's saying here is true. We covered it. We covered it on this channel. We talked about the Israeli settler violence that is backed up both implicitly and explicitly by the IDF.
In this situation, I'm a medical doctor, as you know, and I learned that the best treatment of a patient is not only to look at the symptoms, but at the causes of the problem. And while we are talking, Gaza now is under bombardment. Gaza is taken, actually, Netanyahu is taking Gaza, the whole of Gaza, 2.2 million people as a hostage, cutting water, cutting electricity, cutting medicines, cutting food from them. The acts of collective punishment against 2.2 million Palestinians is not the right response. And this will lead to more problems. But the cause problem of what we see here is 56 years of military Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. The fact that Netanyahu blocked every possibility for a peaceful resolution of this conflict, he blocked Oslo Agreement, he fought against it.
But by the way, the guy talking right now is the president of the Palestinian National Initiative, which is essentially a political party within Palestine that seeks to kind of exist as the democratic alternative to Fatah and Hamas. Kyrie, thank you for gifting a sub to Nanachi. But yeah, this is the guy who is pushing for democracy within Palestine. So he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, they want a peaceful solution. the ideology of the PNI is essentially that they want a return to the 1967 borders, the removal of illegal settlements, and East Jerusalem being the capital of a free Palestinian state. So that's essentially what he pushes for here.
He aggravated people against Yitzhak Rabin, who was assassinated after signing Oslo Agreement. And the result is what we see today, a protracted problem. The only way out of this situation so that no Palestinian or Israeli would suffer is to end the Israeli illegal occupation, end the system of apartheid. And I'm not saying that by my own words. These are the words of Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, and even the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem, end the system of apartheid that Palestinians.
And we've talked about B'Tselem before. They're a very good organization. If you want to get information about the Israeli apartheid state, they are by far one of the best resources.
Are subjected to.
You know, I watched you, if I may just jump in there, I watched you do an interview with an old colleague of mine, Fareed Zakaria at CNN, and you said many similar things, and it was a thoughtful interview, it was conducted respectfully. But you said one thing there which I wanted to challenge you on now, which is you said that in these attacks, Hamas did not target civilians. I mean, that is clearly completely untrue. They deliberately targeted civilians. Would you like to retract that statement?
No, I said that Hamas started by attacking military stations, and obviously there were attacks on civilians, which we don't accept and we don't agree with, as much as we don't agree now with what the Israeli airstrikes are doing to Gaza, striking civilian population, killing so far 700 people, and I am sure by tomorrow morning it will be 2,000 people killed.
But just to clarify, just to clarify, you do now accept they were targeting civilians, because you didn't accept that on CNN.
No, I said I didn't have the full information. I know now that some civilians were killed, and this is unacceptable.
Yeah, like he's like Piers Morgan is trying to like roast him for not immediately agreeing with things he hadn't had time to look into himself.
Some civilians. I mean, 260 mainly young people. Well, let me just say something. 260 mainly young people attending a peaceful music festival were machine gunned to their death by terrorists flying in, paragliding in with machine guns. I mean, it is hard to imagine a worse atrocity. Do you unreservedly condemn that act of terrorism?
I do not accept killing any civilian, but would you tell me that the Israeli soldiers that have killed today 140 Palestinian children and 105 Palestinian women are also terrorists?
I think that the Israeli people are entitled to defend themselves against.
The Israeli people are entitled to defend themselves against children? Unarmed women and children? I don't think so, Piers.
That's what happened in the last 48 hours. I'm not for a moment defending everything the Israeli government's done in the last few decades. Of course, I've always, where it's been justified, criticized what they...
Again, Hitler particles off the charts from Piers Morgan. Hitler particles off the charts.
Been doing. But on this occasion, I'm not interested in playing whataboutery with you. I'm simply asking...
Wait, but that's exactly what you did, though. You brought... What about the concert?
Would you agree with me?
I'm simply asking you, do you unreservedly condemn the slaughter?
He already said that. He did. He already said that he did.
Condemn 260 innocent people.
I condemn any killing of any civilian, whether Palestinian or Israeli. But you have to accept that if Israel has the right to defend itself, Palestinians also must have the same right of being able to defend themselves.
But nobody has a right to commit acts of terrorism. You'd agree with that, right?
Would you say, no, I am asking, would you say that we also have the right to defend ourselves as human beings?
I think that there has been an oppression of the Palestinian people in Gaza for way too long. I think that there needs to be a peace settlement. We finally...
I have to be honest with you guys. I know that Piers Morgan is broken, but the fact that he even said he recognizes the oppression of the the Palestinian people is actually kind of mind-blowing to me. I know he's about to follow it up by saying something completely unhinged and vile, but it's still surprising to hear him acknowledge that.
We finally got there in Northern Ireland, but I don't understand how anybody with even half a brain would think the way to get a peace settlement is to kill nearly 1,000 mostly innocent Israelis who have nothing to do with the conflict, many of whom were attending a music festival, and get machine gunned to pieces. There is no way. There is no way that kind of attack is ever going to forge peace, is there?
Absolutely, but let's look forward. Now, at this very moment, there are hostages. There are Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. There are Israeli prisoners in Gaza. The best step forward.
I do have to say, by the way, as terrible as Piers Morgan is every time he opens his mouth, I'm still grateful, like, this guy right here, Mustafa Barghouti, got time on this program to say the truth. Like, he's being accurate while advocating for, like, a just two-state solution. And, like, I think he's doing a great job in an incredibly hostile interview.
Is the following: immediate exchange of prisoners, immediate stop of all the fighting, immediate ceasefire, and opening the road for what you have said. Something like what happened in Ireland, ending the Israeli illegal occupation, allowing Palestinians finally to be free from oppression and to live side by side. I personally wouldn't mind if we could live side by side in two-state solution. But if Israel kills the two-state option, I think the only solution is that we live together in one country, in peaceful.
Can I ask you? I know you're not
in one democratic state.
Okay, I know you're not a member.
Where we both have equal rights.
Yeah.
And we both are entitled to the same equal human rights. I think that's the only way out of this situation. And we cannot say. I mean, I could list to you now so many atrocities. Let me tell you one thing from my own personal experience. Once in 1996, I was treating an injured person. I was a medical person in my white coat, and an Israeli sniper saw me and shot me twice. I still carry 35 shrapnels in my back.
Jesus. Okay, I didn't actually know this story about him. Like, this dude walks around with shrapnel from a double tap from an Israeli sniper that he got while treating people who were wounded. God, well, like, dude's based for sure, but also just like what a testament to the absolute. I'm trying to think of another word other than fuckery of the IDF. Just I can't believe that, man.
But I don't keep talking about that. I think the way out of this is to stop all forms of violence, to stop all forms of conflict, and to allow a peaceful resolution.
But here's the thing.
And that peaceful,
Mustafa,
here's the thing. Let
me just respond to that. You know, when I watched your
Mustafa, let me just respond to that. If I had been that Israeli sniper, I would have shot you 3 times. Your response. And do you condemn war crimes committed by Hamas only?
At CNN, and I hear you again tonight, you sound a reasonable man who wants a reasonable solution to this, right? I'm not going to disrespect you by saying otherwise.
Honestly, Piers Morgan seems to be quite upset that they got the most based dude on his program to talk about this instead of someone he could just have a fight with and villainize.
The problem is Hamas are not reasonable people. They're not like you. They just want to kill as many Jews as they can possibly kill. They have no interest in the kind of resolution.
I love the audacity of Piers Morgan explaining to the leader of a political party that operates in Gaza how Hamas works. This is like if you had a Democrat on and had to explain, like someone was trying to explain to them how the Republicans work.
That you're talking about. And Hamas now has a stranglehold over the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian people. As long as they have that stranglehold with their concept of how this plays out, there is no chance of the settlement you're talking about. Do you accept that?
May I respond?
Yeah.
I know Hamas people. I've negotiated with them so many times. I've debated with them many times about the value and power of nonviolent resistance. And I tell you, they are ready to accept two-state solution. They are ready to accept that. What they are not ready to accept is that we Palestinians will repeat what the PLO leadership did, recognizing Israel as a state, while Israel still refuses to recognize our right as a state. You know, one of the main problems that Netanyahu created, and I think this man will be definitely put
Again, just to really hammer this point home, we know that Benjamin Netanyahu funded Hamas, was one of the key players in funding this fundamentalist far-right extremism within Gaza. And this guy has had to deal with it his entire life, with Hamas getting money from Benjamin Netanyahu to enact these acts of violence. Like, he knows how big of a role Netanyahu has had. A lot of this is by design. It's designed. It's kind of like a mousetrap. It's designed to provoke a reaction from people in Palestinian territory, and then it is designed to radicalize them and designed to funnel them into a death cult that serves the political interests of the far right within Israel.
In front of many inquiries about what happened in the last 2 days or 3 days. But one of the worst things he did was to stand up in the United Nations only 2 weeks ago, carrying the map of Israel, including annexing the occupied West Bank, annexing the occupied Gaza Strip, annexing the occupied East Jerusalem, as well as the Golan Heights, which Israeli officially annexed. This map by itself drove everybody crazy. That meant that he and his government, with people like Smotrich, who doesn't hide away calling himself a fascist homophobe, they say that we should fill the West Bank with settlers and settlements so that Palestinians would lose all hopes of a state of their own.
Okay.
And then they will have one of three choices: either to immigrate or accept a life of subjugation to the Israelis or die. Such statement by the second most important minister in the Israeli government does not lead to peace. And that's
well,
what
on that point, Mr. Miguel, I would agree with you. I think some of the more hardline right-wing headbangers, frankly, that Netanyahu's put into his cabinet are coming out with incendiary rhetoric before this, which has been deeply unhelpful. So on that, I would agree with you. I've got to leave it there, but thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No, it's important to hear that side, and I appreciate it.
Honestly, he sounds disappointed with having accidentally invited one of the most base dudes on to talk. Oh, God. Oh, well, thank you. I wish I could have yelled at you more, but you were too reasonable, and I'm upset about you having been on my program.